Today we're going to explore some of rock and roll's coolest guitars. The player is Tom Mellow Yellow Morello. The guitars in question are his custom-made Arm the Homeless guitar, his Soul Power Fender Stratocaster, and his Fender Telecaster. Let's begin. Tom Morello was born May 30th, 1964 in New York City and raised in Libertyville, Illinois. Tom Morello is known for three things: his innovative guitar technique, his love of American capitalism, and for dressing like a homeless dog. Now let's get some musical background on this guy. At 13 years old, Tom joined Nebula, which was a cover band. They played Led Zeppelin, Steve Miller, and Bachman-Turner Overdrive songs, among others. Tom was the singer and says that he developed lead singer disease, meaning that he felt he was too cool for school and was fired from the band for not showing up to practice. His next band was called The Electric Sheep and featured Tool guitar player Adam Jones on bass. The two grew up together in Libertyville and even dated for a semester in high school, allegedly. In the mid-1980s, Tom founded a band called Lockup, in which he played the guitar. In 1989, Lockup released their only album titled Somethin' Bitchin' This Way Comes, by Geffen Records, owned by billionaire capitalist David Geffen. In 1991, Tom formed a new band. This one with Zach De La Rocha on vocals, Brad Wilk on drums, and Tim Comerford on bass guitar. Now to the guitars. In 1986, Tommy was living in LA and trying to make it as a male stripper. Fact: he and his stripping partner, Maine, were saving up to buy a hot tub for their apartment. This is 100% true. Instead of a hot tub, Tom went to Performance Guitar USA in Hollywood, California, and asked them to build him a custom guitar. This was around 86, 87. Tom kind of goes back and forth with the dates. Not knowing much about guitar building, he just ordered based off what looked good on the menu and was given a guitar that was terrible, according to Tom. It was probably the worst guitar I've ever played, says Tom. The guitar originally featured a Stratocaster body with a Performance Corsair neck, two Seymour Duncan JB pickups, and a chrome Floyd Rose tremolo. Because he hated it, he had no problem tearing it apart and rebuilding it piece by piece. According to Tom, the only thing remaining from that original guitar is this piece of wood. Over time, I swapped necks on it maybe 4 times. Pickups came and went maybe a dozen times. The whammy bar, I tried every different version of Kaler and Floyd Rose. All of the internal electronics were gutted, just me trying to get it right. I'm not much of a builder, so every time I got an idea, I brought it to some new guitar shop and had it worked on. The information about all the different iterations of the homeless guitar, aka hobo guitar, is spotty at best. However, since the guitar has stayed the same since 1990, which predates the formation of Rage, we're going to talk about the final version of it. Tom got a replacement neck out of a bin at Nadine's Music Store on Santa Monica Boulevard. The neck is said to be a graphite Kramer knockoff with a hockey stick headstock, and he added a brass fat head in order to increase the sustain, which according to Tom did not work, but he kept it on anyway. It was probably a Groove Tubes fat head, since they filed for a patent with that name, but that hasn't been confirmed by Tom or his entourage. Basically, a fat head is a piece of brass in the shape of a headstock that you attach to your guitar in an attempt to increase the sustain. Considering that they're hard to find these days, they probably weren't all that effective. But if you've got one and it works, please let me know in the comments. The guitar has a 12-inch radius with a 22-fret rosewood fretboard, an Ibanez Edge double-locking tremolo, which enables Tom to manipulate muted notes without pulling the strings with the tremolo arm. It's got a locking nut and Godot crown head tuners. The pickups are said to be an EMG 85 in the bridge, which has Alnico 5 magnets and is said to be powerful and versatile and is great for everything from blues to the most extreme metal. This pickup is often used in the neck position, but EMG says that it's also great in the bridge thanks to its exceptional smoothness and soul. The neck pickup is an EMG H, which is a single coil pickup in a humbucker-sized housing. It's ceramic instead of alnico, which EMG says provides a wide frequency response for clarity and a bright tone and a rich blend of harmonics. The guitar also has a Gibson-style three-way pickup selector switch on the lower horn, a volume knob for each pickup, and a master tone control. Tom gets his famous stutter effects from the hobo guitar by turning the volume off on the neck pickup and full on the bridge, and rapidly switching the pickup selector back and forth like an audio strobe light.
Did I stutter?
He also sometimes uses a slide to further enhance his signature sound. For strings, Tom uses custom lights 9-46 gauge, which he says, "It seemed to work better with the locking nut for me. It provides a springiness and an ease in bending." He keeps the guitar in E standard tuning. There are 4 hippos that Tom drew on the guitar, which many think is because Tom says that's all he knew how to draw at the time. The hippos actually represent the 4 distinct Kenyan tribes that battled for dominance during the Papa Umau Mau rebellion against the British during the 1950s. Hippos are said to be the most feared and dangerous animals in Kenya because of how many people they kill each year. This is in fact why Tom learned how to draw hippos in the first place. His father was Kenyan and abandoned Tom and his mother when Tom was only 16 months old and returned to Kenya. The large hippo painted on the back of the guitar is said to represent Tom's father. There is a sticker with the communist hammer and sickle and 5-pointed star, but the sticker is purposefully placed at an angle, showing the star on the right side of the hammer and sickle, signifying the corruption, mass murder, and ultimately the end of the Soviet Union in 1989 with the fall of the Berlin Wall. By 1990, Tom had settled on the final version of the guitar and hasn't made any modifications since. According to Tom, "At some point I gave up and said, okay, it's never going to sound like what I hear in my head, so I'm just going to stop worrying and around, and I'm just going to play music." Just to make it clear, I wasn't happy with where the guitar was at, but I settled. Now let's talk about the naming of the guitar. This guitar famously features the words "Arm the Homeless" written in red and black marker. But that wasn't the original idea. Tom is a big fan of Woody Guthrie, who had guitars on which he wrote, "This machine kills fascists," and on another one he wrote, "God hates." Fascism originated in Italy in the first half of the 20th century, and Woody Guthrie hated Italian immigrants and wanted the world to know. Woody's father, Charles Guthrie, was a prominent member of the KKK in Oklahoma in the early 1900s. He was reportedly involved in the 1911 lynching of Laura and L.D. Nelson. Yikes. So anyway, the first idea was actually "harm the homeless," but Tom thought that was a little too aggressive, so he changed it to "charm the homeless," and then he changed it again to "arm the armless," and then "harm the armless," and of course, finally, "arm the homeless." No matter what you think about the idea of giving weapons to the homeless, the slogan is definitely a conversation starter. I think we can all agree on that. This guitar has been used on all albums featuring an electric guitar in E standard throughout Tom's career from Rage Against the Machine onward. And that's the story of the famous hobo guitar.
Now onto some drop D action.
Sometime prior to 1990, Tom Mellow Yellow Morello was living in beautiful Los Angeles, California. He had a roommate named Scott Tracy who was in a band called Liquid Jesus. Great band name. One day they were hanging out in Tool singer Maynard James Keenan's apartment hot tub, and Maynard introduced Tom to drop D tuning and dimethyltryptamine, because of course he did. Tom instantly realized the raw power of this awesome tuning and knew that he needed a new guitar, since his hobo guitar has a locking nut, which he doesn't know you can in fact remove. Anyway, Tom once again engaged in his favorite pastime, capitalism. When he traded his 50-watt Marshall head for a stock 1982 Fender USA-made Telecaster with his roommate voluntarily, without coercion or force from the government. And it's not a 52 reissue, by the way, which they also made in 1982, because of the year, of course. A 52 reissue would have 21 frets, versus Tom's, which has 22. And according to Tom, the guitar is stock, so no neck replacement. The guitar features a maple fretboard with 22 frets, 2 single coil pickups, the body is painted black with a white pickguard, and there's a 6-saddle bridge. Yeehaw. Tom wrote Sendero Luminoso on the guitar, which is a magic spell in the Harry Potter universe that levitates your balls when you're on the toilet, which is a problem as you get older, according to a friend.
Hey, what's wrong? Oh, come on, hit you in the thigh, you big baby.
Long balls! Long balls!
Okay, actually, Sendero Luminoso translates to Shining Path in English. Sounds great, doesn't it? For those unfamiliar, Shining Path is a Peruvian terrorist organization, also known as the Communist Party of Peru. Most people critical of Tom Morello point to the horrific murder campaign carried out against peasants, union organizers, and the general public, as well as other communists. But Tom didn't put the sticker on there to support Shining Path, but rather to show people the way that communism requires violence in order to get power over others, which included, in the case of Shining Path, slitting throats, strangulation, stoning to death, and burning alive of peasants and indigenous peoples, according to Wikipedia and the Encyclopedia Britannica. Yikes. And Tom has said on record, if there were instances in which the Shining Path committed atrocities, we're absolutely opposed to that. That is something to be condemned. See, Tom does not support terrorists. Other stickers on the guitar include people holding a sign that says, "Go home, honestly, we hate you." Many think that this is a reference to the Papa Umau Mau uprising in Kenya in the 50s. However, it turns out that it's really just a photo of some audience members at an early Rage show who didn't like the band and wanted to show their disapproval. And Tom decided to use that as fuel to continue his musical pursuits. Kind of like Billy Corgan being told by record executives that he was too ugly and had too whiny a voice to be a successful musician. So he shaved his head and started wearing a shirt that said 0, taking the criticism and turning it around into a positive. Other stickers on the guitar include the IWW Cat sticker, which is a British 80s EDM group of cat ladies. And finally, a Mountain Song sticker, which some think is another pro-communist sticker, but is really, of course, just the classic Jane's Addiction song of the same name. Tom has said that he uses the neck pickup on his guitar 100% of the time, and he uses 10s for strings because the guitar is in drop D tuning. Around the time Tom was transitioning from Rage to Audioslave, he needed a new guitar. Well, Tom loves engaging in the capitalist pastime known as shopping. One day, Tom was shopping at a local mom-and-pop guitar store called Guitar Center. In Guitar Center was a Fender Stratocaster with an alder body, painted black, with a matching headstock, locking tuners, no comfort carve, instead it had binding, which is unusual for Strat, as well as a mirror pickguard, which I've never seen on a factory Strat before.
Very nice.
Not since Jimmy Page's Reflector Telecaster or Paul Stanley's cracked mirror Ibanez has a guitar been so reflective. The Strat originally had 3 Fender noiseless single coil pickups, which I've had in a Strat before, and they sounded sterile and lifeless to me, but maybe they've gotten better. Tom replaced the bridge pickup with a Seymour Duncan Hot Rails, which is a humbucker in the size of a single coil. According to Seymour Duncan, the Hot Rails pickup uses a strong ceramic magnet and overwound coils to deliver big-sounding, well-balanced humbucker tones for rock and metal. The neck is a medium C shape with a rosewood fretboard, 22 frets, and the standard 25.5-inch scale length. But it's got a 9.5 to 14-inch compound radius. That means the fretboard is rounder near the headstock, which makes it easier to play chords for many players. And the fretboard gets flatter like an orange traffic cone the closer it gets to the 12th fret, which makes it easier to bend strings and not mush them all together, which can choke off the note. Tom added a locking nut and an Ibanez Edge bridge, just like on his hobo guitar. It should be noted that the correct pronunciation of Ibanez is actually
Ibáñez.
because the company was named after Spanish guitar builder Salvador Ibáñez, though since it is a Japanese guitar company, it would be pronounced.
Ibáñez.
Tom also had a kill switch installed on the lower horn of the guitar, just like his homeless guitar. And he wrote Soul Power in white marker on the body using the Simpsons font, because he had, quote, a bolt of inspiration. It was a new era. It was a new band. And every new band, in order to be great, has to find its authentic footing. And there was a tremendous amount of love and soul in the room when we were writing those songs. This was Tom's main guitar from 2002 to 2007 for all of the Audioslave songs which are played in standard tuning, and he continues to play the guitar to this day. It is believed to be a designer series Fender American Deluxe Stratocaster or a Fender American Designer Edition, as it may also be known. Now, a lot of people think that Tom Morello is some sort of communist because of all the communist stickers he puts on his guitars. But that's because the guitars are communist, not Tom. He's a capitalist through and through. Tom Morello loves capitalism more than Greta Van Fleet loves wearing adult onesies. And I have proof. I mean, would a communist charge over $1,000 for a ticket to his show? Of course not. Would a communist have an online store on his website selling products in a voluntary exchange for dollars? No way. Would a communist attend a racist Ivy League rich person university? Not on your life. And would a communist live in a multi-million-dollar mansion in a gated community, fly private, and hoard tens of millions of dollars instead of giving it all to the government? Never. Hold on a moment. This just in. Tom has just sent out a press release saying that he has finally read the Communist Manifesto and realized that making a product or service and voluntarily exchanging it for money is capitalism, not communism. Tom says he has now renounced his U.S. citizenship and relocated to the island nation of Cuba, which is a communist country. He has given all of his vast fortune to the Cuban regime and is already starving himself to death, as is customary there. Double news flash. Hold on. Apparently that was old news. This just in. After only one day in Cuba, Tom Morello has been spotted in the Atlantic Ocean on a makeshift raft, attempting to return to formerly capitalist America. Let us all pray that he makes it back safely. Okay, I was having a little fun at Tom's expense. If you haven't figured out from watching my other videos, what I try to do is to tell you about the guitars with as close to 100% accuracy as I can. And the rest is just jokes and nonsense to entertain you, and myself, of course. With Tom DeLonge, I made fun of his belief in aliens, because that's what he's known for. With Rivers Cuomo, I made a joke about him having a penis lengthening surgery, because he actually had to have leg lengthening surgery, and I wanted to make a joke about it. With Eddie Van Halen, I joked about the bulge in his pants and David Lee Roth. And with Tom Morello, I joked about his political beliefs because that's what he's known for, including in his music, by the way. If that's what you put out there, that's what I'm going to make fun of, whether I agree with it or not. Now, I personally think that Tom Morello is a talented and innovative guitar player, and I would even say that he helped evolve what the electric guitar could be and is now, the same way that Jimi Hendrix, Eddie Van Halen, and others did before him. Well, that's the end of our video. Thank you for watching this nonsense, and have a great day.